Whether this is your first classical music concert ever or your 100th, we are so happy you are all here. You all belong here. My name is Tong, and I am a co-founder of the festival. And joining me, this is Maitreyi, who is the other co-founder. And we are joined by 3 other incredible admin artists. We have Will, who also plays the violin and viola. And we have already in the ensemble, there's Annie on piano, and there's David on cello. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge how grateful we are to be guests on this beautiful Treaty 7 territory. This land has been the traditional home of the Blackfoot Confederacy, including the Siksika, Piikani, Kainai, Tsuut'ina, Stoney Nakoda nations, as well as the people of the Métis. Tonight, we are gathered here once again to celebrate a guiding principle of Windwood, which is connection. The past 2 weeks, 5 resident artists around the world have joined us here in Airdrie to rehearse and to cook and live together and bring music of the highest caliber to all corners of our community. This journey has not been easy. It's our 3rd year now, and we've poured our hearts into this festival starting from day 1. We've often felt frustrated, discouraged, and we've often felt small. And I personally have had doubts about whether we were truly needed here. But always, I come back to my belief. Seeing the residents, particularly these past 2 days. Some of you, who has seen them already at one of the events? Hands up. Okay, round of applause. Thank you. I recognize some of our collaborators. Thank you so much. Aw, yeah, I recognize a lot of friendly faces here. So you've seen this, the sincerity and passion they bring, and how much the music really means to each individual they've touched. So we've been to the Airdrie Ability Center, we've been to Bethany Homes, we've been to Didsbury Hospital, and Suto Farms, and the public library. If any of you were there, we were all in tears. And just seeing each smile, each tear on the audience faces, and feeling my own heart also steer with this hope and courage. This has all reminded me, and of all of us who do a lot of the work behind the scenes, how to fall in love again and again, with the music, with the land, and with our friends here that we make music with. And how to be astonished again and again by the power of music. So, here we are, ready to start our festival steampunk edition. If you don't know what you're in for, that's okay. We will guide you along the journey. It's going to be an incredible evening. Sit back and enjoy. Come along the ride. And here we all are, affirming this belief, this truth. If you let us show you that yes, the music, the connection we bring to you tonight, it is profoundly, simply necessary. And once again, welcome. Thank you for being here. Our family is growing because of each of you. And seeing this many faces in a crowd is a huge win for us. So thank you for coming out. And one final personal thing I'd like to share. There's little mantras I say to myself when I'm feeling a little bit stuck. And sometimes when we're just about to make it on opening day, it's sometimes the hardest. And this afternoon, I was reading through my notes, and I repeated this one to myself that I would like to share with you. Let it matter. Listen generously. So with that, I'm going to invite David to introduce the music to you.
David. I play the cello, obviously. I just wanted to say a couple quick words about some of the music that you'll hear in the first half. So you're in for a very exciting and a very intense first half of this concert. We're going to begin the show tonight with the Piano Quintet by Dmitri Shostakovich. Shostakovich was a Russian composer. He lived in Soviet Russia in the 20th century. He's really well known for this very intense, very emotionally complex music that he writes, and this piece is no exception. I want to urge you all to get very comfortable and settle in. It's a bit of a lengthy piece. It's about 35 minutes long, so make sure you settle in, but it is well worth it. As I said, it's extremely intense. It's very emotionally complex. That also makes it one of my absolute favorite pieces to perform. I think that there's a lot to really think about in this piece. Even after working on it for the past couple weeks, there's a lot that I scratch my chin a little bit about with this piece when thinking about it. I think that's why it's really so wonderful. It comes in 5 very distinct sections. They flow kind of fluidly from one into another. And each section of this piece sounds very, very different. They're very contrasting, but they're really kind of unified by a central emotional theme. And I think each movement, each of the 5 movements of this piece really center around different ways to view sorrow and different ways to view despair. Now, it's not just an extremely depressing piece. There are these very beautiful, uplifting moments as well. But I'm just going to give you a very brief roadmap, and then we'll start playing. So it starts with a very, very bold introduction, which is kind of like an outburst from the piano, and it's responded to by the strings. It's sort of like the 2 parties involved can't quite compete with one another enough on how sorrowful they are, and it's very emotional. And this introduction is brief and leads directly into the second part, which begins with the solo violin, just one violin player playing by herself. And this will be very apparent after the really bombastic introduction. It'll be clear when this starts. And this part really reminds me of a solitary person walking in maybe like a very snowy, very icy wasteland by themselves. It's very lonely sounding, it's very desolate, and slowly, one by one, each of the players joins this solo violin, and it's almost like it's still just as lonely, but just with other people as well, until it's sort of this collective kind of lonely wailing that builds into the second part. This ends and kind of abruptly begins the third part, which is a really bright and boisterous and fun dance-like movement. And at first listen, it appears actually quite joyful and very happy. But I think that once we get into it a little bit, you realize there's a really quite sinister and cynical quality to this joyfulness and this happiness, especially in the context after the very lonely second movement. This goes into another very sorrowful fourth movement, which I think is sort of the emotional climax of the piece. It gets very intense. And the really incredible part about this piece is the ending. It has such kind of a light and chirpy and flowy and happy ending to this piece. But again, I think that there's a lot more that appears right on the surface at this ending. It's actually quite dark and quite sinister. And I have this image, maybe you're smiling, but you're gritting your teeth on the inside. And it just kind of plays out very, very gently. You might not even realize it's over at first. And I think after all of the intensity that happens before the ending, it really kind of makes you question why Shostakovich would end this huge piece like that. So anyways, enough talking. Oh, and before intermission, we'll play one more short piece. This is another one of my favorites. It is Creep by Radiohead. So I think that we can go ahead and begin. Please enjoy Shostakovich Piano Quintet, followed by Creep. Thank you very much.
powerful for us, and it would not be possible without all of you here. So thank you. Yes. I can't clap, but I'm sending claps out to all of you. So a brief word about the piece that we'll play next. It's called Voodoo Dolls, and it's by an American composer named Jessie Montgomery. It was commissioned in 2008? Yeah, 2008, by a dance company that commissioned several different American composers to write songs based on different types of dolls. So in the same premiere that Voodoo Dolls was performed, there was a dance that was choreographed to go with it, and also a dance about rag dolls and about like Russian nesting dolls. So that's where the name comes from. This piece is inspired by African drumming as well as chants. And it's easy to see these different elements, I think, as we play. So some of the characteristics of West African drumming is each drum has a different rhythm that interlock with each other to create like quite complex like collective rhythms between all of the drums. And that happens in the quartet. Each of us quite often have a different repeating rhythm that combine together to create something quite groovy and special. And then in the middle section, there's this chant over a groove that the violins have. And I think the contrast is quite something. I think that's all I had to say about Voodoo Dolls. So I will invite my quartet mates out, and yeah, here's Voodoo Dolls by Jessie Montgomery.
So the piece that you just heard was Caravan, made famous by Duke Ellington. And while we are having a pretty major set change right now, I thought I'd come out and say hello and say a few words. I wanted to take a few seconds to say a couple more welcomes, a couple more thank yous, and a couple more hellos. Very much echoing a lot of what Tong said at the start of this show. We started Winwood, simply put, because of love. We love what we do. We love to get the opportunity to share it with as many people as possible. And we get to do this. Sometimes I just wake up, even when it's a hard day or we've spent too long rehearsing and we're all very tired, I still wake up and I think, we get to do this. And we get to share it with all of you. And we wanted to create a space that we could share this as many times, as often as possible, with as many people as we can, because my God, as you can see on this stage, we love what we do. And that's where Winwood came in. This is a space that we can find our kindred spirits. This is a space that we can meet strangers just waiting to be friends. And we can find these spaces where land, people, and music connect. Even if we don't all listen to the same things, we definitely don't all come from the same backgrounds, but well, this is so much fun, and we love what we do, and we are so excited that we get to continue to create a space that makes this possible. We wanted to find you, and here you are. It's so exciting. Every year we find our residents, or they find us, or I don't know. We all really just find each other. And every year, Tong and I are astounded by how much of their hearts, their souls, their creative spirits they leave on this stage. And they leave with you. And every note that we play, and every time we get to make this music, it has a piece of every single person that we have ever connected with. So the next time that we get to play these pieces, you're playing it with us, and there is nothing short of a miracle in that. And it is not a miracle that we take for granted. All of this to say, we're so glad that you're here. We're so grateful to be able to continue to grow our family and build community in this space that we love so much in Airdrie. And we plan to stay for as long as you'll have us. A few extra thank yous. Thank you to the government of Alberta. Thank you to the Chinese Consul General. Thank you to Bert Church Theatre, to Adam, to Christina, to Jody, to our incredible tech team who are putting on really an incredible light show for us too, which we did not ask and we will gladly take. Thank you to Peggy, to Lois, to Yana, to Mama Wang, all of our volunteers, to Brella Vita, our partners. We would not be here without you. And we are so grateful that you continue to share your space, your land, and yourselves with us. Now, this last piece, well, I'm not the right person to introduce this, so I'm going to introduce you to the person who is. I would love to welcome Maestro Claude Lapalme to the stage to introduce a little bit of this Kapustin.
Hello, I am rarely hatted, but in the spirit of things, I'm wearing one now. However, since I'm a conductor and conductors move, I will be removing the hat for the performance. This is just a public service announcement. But then you'll see that I have hat hair after, for which I apologize. I was told to say a few words about the Kapustin. Nikolai Kapustin is a very, very interesting composer. He is also a Russian composer, but he's born in the Ukraine. And he's had affinities with both countries for most of his life. But he chose to study at the Moscow Conservatory, and he studied composition, but really played into sort of high-end jazz combos, generally quintets. And he played in the jazz idiom, but he's not an improviser. He studied composition. So he's one of these strange hybrids where, because he studied composition very, very seriously, that's what he wanted to do. That's what he considered himself to be. But he was also a jazz pianist who didn't improvise. We have a situation where he would write his own solos, and so therefore his composition fed the jazz, and his jazz fed the compositional process of all of his other works, which are generally very, very jazz-inspired. So you heard a very serious Russian piece by Shostakovich, a man who had a very large panoply of feelings that he expressed. And one of them is very rare, rarely heard outside Russia, and that's a certain amount of cynicism, which is not as present in the quintet, but is very often present in Shostakovich. And you can hear a bit of that cynicism in the works of other Russian composers, such as a bit in Prokofiev, for example, in the humor that he has. It's not always all-out humor. Alfred Schnittke, the modernist polystylic composer, is the same. You can hear things that are witty at times, but there's always this undercurrent of, gritting your teeth a little bit. With Nikolai Kapustin, you have none of that. It's really much sunnier music with a sense of fun. He writes generally to create a sense of fun on how he plays with jazz idioms in something such as a concerto for strings with, as soloist, both a piano and a violin. And he's also written stuff that is maybe more jazz-oriented in the sense that he has also a concerto for saxophone, for example, an instrument that's done, both idioms very well over the past century and a half. But in this particular piece, you have this great sense of fun, no cynicism, lyricism, definitely when needed, driving rhythms, and he's a very interesting, I wouldn't say odd, but he's a very, very interesting amalgam of, let's say, if you take certain composers of all styles, like you put Duke Ellington, Scott Joplin, Astor Piazzolla, Oscar Peterson for the virtuosity, and a modernist like Alfred Schnittke, and push them together really, really, really hard, you will get basically Nikolai Kapustin. His music sounds like no one else, and that's great. After a few bars, once you've heard this piece, after a few bars of Kapustin, you'll say, I've heard this guy. He's got a funny name, because kapusta means cabbage, by the way. So Kapustin means he's a cabbage farmer. But the idea of a cabbage soup, of a borscht in Eastern Europe, where sometimes you will open the fridge and you'll see what's in the fridge, and you'll say, I'm going to add that to my soup. And you'll put everything in the fridge into the borscht. I think that this composer was named Kapustin is actually very prescient in that way, because in his composition, he puts everything that he finds in the fridge. Enjoy Kapustin Double Concerto for string orchestra, solo violin, and solo piano.